Twitter's kind of going wild right now. It's a big civil war between the Elon supporters and the Elon haters. It's a real bad time to give any kind of opinion on Twitter, but I guess that's just an average Tuesday on there. So Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion, which is such a large number that it's really hard to comprehend. So let me just put that in perspective. 44 million seconds is around 510 days, which is almost 2 years but not quite. Now 44 billion seconds is about I don't even know how to say that. 44 billion seconds is 509,259 days, which is around 1400 years. So yeah, it's a pretty big difference. Elon really gemmed his mines to get this one. I doubt he'd ever get a return on his investment for something like Twitter, but I imagine someone like him would be more interested in the data than he actually is in the money. If you have a private individual owning a platform like Twitter, it'd be pretty easy for him to just, tweak with the data any way he likes to promote content that he thinks is more worthy and suppress anything that he doesn't like. Ayo! Getting a bit ahead of myself. Before any of you get the pitchforks out for me saying that, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not saying he will, okay? But I'm saying it's entirely possible. It's really stupid how much power that cancel culture has nowadays. And most of it happens on Twitter. So if you own Twitter, you own the cancel culture mob. And trust me, that's a lot of power for one man. I think Kanye warned us about something like that back in 2010.
One man on Twitter will have all that power.
Elon Musk says that for a functioning democracy, we need freedom of speech. I mean, I'm Canadian, and I think we're faring just fine without freedom of speech, but I'm not here to get political, okay? I'm not gonna get political. I'm here to say that if he really cared about democracy, then why not let the people vote on it, huh? Instead of just buying Twitter for 44 billion like some sort of oligarchy, why don't we have a Twitter election, and whoever wins gets 100% owner of Twitter for 4 years? Now that would be true democracy on Twitter. Imagine politicians having ad campaigns for Twitter. Some nobody politician is going to tweet that they're running, and the top comment is just going to be L plus ratio. Maybe if we can't get Obama back in office, we can get him back as president of Twitter. He is in fact the most followed account on Twitter. I want to see a Joe Biden tweet that he says that if he wins the Twitter election, he's going to add an edit button to tweets. Maybe there should be a vice president on Twitter too, in case the president dies in office or loses his account. Actually, you know what? I think I'm wrong about all this. Nobody's gonna want some smelly old white man politician to be president of Twitter. They're gonna want Dream as Twitter president. But you know who I want for Twitter president? In 2022, in the first Twitter election, I will be casting my vote for Matthew Patrick.
I just simultaneously whipped it, Nene!
Dude, every first tweet from a new Twitter president would go crazy. If you think that the wars on Twitter are bad now, imagine the comments section after Matthew Patrick wins the first Twitter election. People have been talking about if Trump should be allowed back on Twitter, and I'm not opening that can of worms, but I am saying that if he was back on Twitter, and we did have a Twitter election, that's just going to create the most hilarious tweets I've ever seen.
Dream is a liar and a cheater, and his bad boy Hollow cannot be trusted guarding Twitter's security.
Before every US election, the candidates are going to fight over control of the Twitter election first, because whoever controls Twitter can manipulate people to vote for them in the actual election. So we're going to have Joe Biden and his Secret Service showing up to Dream's house with a briefcase of $4 billion for Dream to endorse him on Twitter. All these big internet influencers are about to have emails from the office of Joe Biden offering $100 per retweet.
Here. Take it.
Sadly, we know Elon Musk would never do any of this. He's too scared. He knows he'd never win an actual election, so he doesn't even want to bother trying. He'd rather buy the office than get elected into it. Although imagine how bad it would be if after he already bought Twitter for $44 billion and then ran an election and still lost. Maybe we could do like a parliamentary system, So instead of just one man having all of Twitter, it's like divided up based on the votes. Could have different ridings too. Divide up the world into different ridings based on population, or better yet, based on their Twitter usage. Alright, well, I have one last topic to discuss, and that is this so-called mass Twitter exodus. Man, where are y'all even planning to go, huh? Like, where even is there to go? What, are you gonna go to Truth Social? Trump's new Twitter platform that's all about free speech, with the only restriction being that you aren't even allowed to criticize Truth Social, a free speech platform. Man, it really is just a free speech platform without the free speech. This is real, by the way. Look it up. It's a real big brain move by Trump, I must admit. Good way to create a echo chamber of Trump supporter ideals. So that's my 2 take on all this. I make bangers. See ya.